Hi there, my name is Jake Scott. I'm a photo editor for the Eyeopener, and we're hosting an RSU Election Debate today between two slates, Impact and Are You Connected? Each candidate will be asked a question. Both sides get to answer. They have 2 minutes to make their answer. Then the other side gets a minute to respond, should they choose. I'll let them introduce themselves. Let's start with Impact.
Hi, my name is Ubaidullah, and I'm in my third year of mechanical engineering, and I'm running to be the presidential candidate for Team Impact. Team Impact is a slate that is formed of student leaders across campus, people who have been involved in their respective faculties and programs, and who are dedicated to be very student-focused to ensure that we voice the students' needs and we make decisions that are from the students. The 4 main points that we want to bring to the RSU should be elected, if we are to be elected, are transit, mental health, experiential learning, and access to education.
Thank you very much. Victoria?
Hi, I'm Victoria Morton. I'm running for Vice President of Education of the Impact team. I'm a third-year media production student, and while I've been at Ryerson, I've done many things, including currently serving on the Senate, as well as currently serving as the Vice President of Corporate Relations for the Ryerson Communication and Design Society, as well as other student groups, such as co-founding the Inclusive Media Society. So I'd like to start off by saying I'm very openly that I believe tuition fees are rising way too fast and unsustainably so. But I'd also like to approach this with a very reasonable and responsible policy-driven approach. And I'll do that through the 2017 tuition framework, as well as trying to clean up the OSAP process, create more innovative learning opportunities, work on eliminating unpaid internships, as well as creating more student-friendly academic policies through the University Senate.
Thank you. And over to Are You Connected? Oh.
Hi, my name is Eyeopener. I'm a fourth-year biology student. I'm so excited to be running as president for Are You Connected in the upcoming RSU elections with our amazing team. We're a group of students who are really diverse from different backgrounds, and we want to be connecting students to more space, more services, more transparency, more advocacy, and more campus life. Specifically, some of my experience, I've been a campaigns and advocacy coordinator at the Center for Women and Trans People, as well as one of the co-organizers at the Ryerson Feminist Collective. When it comes to our school's reputation of innovation, I think it's important that we're also innovative in the ways that we address issues and gaps that are currently here at our campus, whether that's more study space, more prayer space, holding accountability cafes, because some students just don't really know what the RSU does, as well as campus life. We're a commuters campus, so we want to make sure that commuters are actually able to afford to be here, which is why we want to lobby for a press discount. Another thing is when it comes to our Rams, we're killing it this year. Go Rams, go. And we want to make sure that we end off the year with as just big enthusiasm as we started with the introduction of our blue and gold homecoming, and we just hope that you, the voters, and our fellow students understand that we at Are You Connected are really excited to hear from you. We know that RSU is for students and by students, and we want to just reaffirm that those principles. Voting days are March 7th, 8th, 9th, and you can vote on your myryerson.ca, and I hope you vote Are You Connected. Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Martin Fox. I'm a third-year psychology student. I'm also doing a minor in law, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Education. And the reason I'm running is because I'm extremely passionate about Ryerson. I think Ryerson is an amazing university. We have such a solid campus here, such a sense of community. But I think that we can do so much more as student leaders to connect students to each other. As we mentioned, the Blue and Gold Ball would be a fantastic opportunity. We need to connect students to more services and support. So for example, de-stressing events throughout the year, not just around exam times. Connecting students to experts in their field through more professional networking events. And essentially what I bring to the table is, like I said, a huge amount of passion and a huge desire to collaborate with other student unions across the country and with student advocacy organizations. When we combine our resources and when students speak with one voice, we can get so much more done on behalf of students. And I'm running with Team Are You Connected, which is just an amazing group of students. We come from all different faculties, so many different experiences and strengths that we have as a team. And we really want to make the RSU meet its potential in terms of providing so many more services and supports for students.
You have 10 seconds.
Thanks so much, and let's have a great debate.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump into the questions here. Because Are You Connected won the coin toss, they have chose to allow Impact to answer first. How would you campaign for lower tuition rates for students? Do you believe that demonstrations and things like the Freeze the Fees campaigns are more effective? And if not, what alternatives would you suggest?
Okay, so that question was many parts. So to break it down, how would I campaign for lower tuition? Our big opportunity for that is in the new 2017 tuition framework that the province is having. And for that, I would want to collaboratively and consultatively create a proposal with the students of Ryerson on what kind of priorities we want to see. You kind of have to take into account the realistic economic state of Ontario, and the reality is we're massively in debt. So I want to take the money that we have and make sure that it's prioritized to the students who need it most. So I'm definitely a very big advocate for needs-based support. As for do I believe that demonstrations such as the Freeze the Fees was the example you gave?
Yeah.
To put it frankly, no, it was not effective. That campaign and campaigns just like it have run for a decade, more than a decade, and they haven't really shown true promise. You need to come at it from a very policy-driven approach. You need to show them that this is the system you have now. Mm-hmm. We've taken the time to understand it. This is the system we'd like to see and how we're going to shift it. And so overall, I think protesting should be a last resort when we have an administration who's made it clear we're willing to work with them and that they're willing to work with us.
Okay, thank you. And do you know who would like to answer for Are You Connected to this question?
Martin.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this one. So absolutely, affordability is a key issue, and students and student leaders definitely need to work quite a bit on this issue. I would tend to agree that the Freeze the Fees movement was not particularly effective, and from my discussions with students and my conversations, most students did not support that particular form of advocacy. Personally, I think that there's evidence that lobbying works. For example, the CFS held over 200 lobby meetings with the federal and provincial governments, and we've seen in the last federal election and in this Ontario budget that commitments and benefits for students have increased. Personally, for me, it starts with input from students, and so what I would want to do is, in the very first month of my term, I would want to restart the Student Action Committee, which is a space for students to come and share their ideas on how we can work on this issue. My job is not to determine the form of advocacy. My job is to simply create spaces for students to express their views about how to best approach this issue, and then to work with them and to be a partner with students in order to make sure that we are advocating in a way that makes our membership feel comfortable. And I would also echo Victoria's comments that we need to approach this in a professional and respectful way and make the government understand that education is an investment. Allowing young people to improve themselves through education is good for society. It's good for the economy. And so we need to unite with other student unions all across the province and even nationally, and explain to the government through serious research and through respectful conversations, through consistent work and consistent meetings, that making education accessible to all is in everybody's interest. It's in students' interests and it's in society's interests. This is something I'm very passionate about, and I just can't wait to start working on this. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to our second question. Given their hand in the recent provincial budget, would you consider becoming a member of the OUSA? Why or why not?
The student advocacy groups, whether it's at the provincial or national level, that Ryerson students' interests and that our concerns and our needs are at the forefront of any decision making. I think it's really important that when it comes to addressing issues of education, of equity, of sustainability, that we're working with a variety of decision makers, whether that's advocacy groups like USA, other students' unions, our university. But the most important is we can't just do this one person individually. It takes a team, and it takes a lot of people to do this. And it's also important that we are collaborating on a consistent basis. A single meeting isn't going to work. A single petition isn't going to work. And this is also a long-term effort. It won't happen within a specific, short term. We saw that the Ontario grant announcement was happened over a couple of years. And so it's important that who we're working with and where the organizations are, whether it's provincially or nationally, that again, that Ryerson students their voices are prioritized.
Okay. And Impact, how would you like to address the question?
So the first thing is that with any external organization that we were joining, we would have to first consult the students. This would have to be a student-led direction. But as for what I think of the organization in general, I was very impressed to see how many of their suggestions from their from their proposal were taken into were seen reflected into the Liberal government budget with education. Mm-hmm. So that's very promising. I like how they're very policy-based. But the great thing about USA is that you don't have to immediately become a full-fledged member. You can start as an observational member and then move on to other steps depending on the level of commitment you want to have with the organization. And I think that exploring that option could definitely be a great one if the students wanted that.
All right. And moving on to the next question then. How do you feel the RSU should interact with school administration? If elected, would your slate be an arm's length sort of organization or look for closer ties with administration? Impact has the floor.
So I think it's important to note two things. One, that the RSU is an independent organization. Two is that at the end of the day, both parties have the same goals in mind. The university wants has the best interest for students, and so does the Ryerson Students' Union. Going forward, should or should not be, it really depends on who is on which side. If the university wants to work with us, we would be more than glad to work with them on a collaborative approach. If there's something that benefits the students and we can work together to accomplish more, sure. If the university is doing something that is not student focused and it is against what the students' needs and wants are, we will definitely stand up against that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think great things come out of collaboration with the university, specifically the administration. When the students in the university work together, we got great things like the SLC, which was great when it came to more student space, because that's really lacking on our campus. We're kind of tight when it comes to space, whether that's for prayer space, study space, or collaborative space, or even rehearsal space for our student groups. Another amazing thing that came out of collaboration with students and our university was the MATME Athletic Center, which really bolstered our reputation as a great school to attend, and also great for our Rams. Another great thing that happened when students in the university came together and were working positively and productively was the implementation of a sexual assault policy. I agree with Ubaid. Yes, the RSU is an independent organization, so any conversation or discussion or work that is happening with the university must ensure and prioritize students' needs and interests. And I think it's important that we maintain a good, close relationship, because at the end of the day, the university and the RSU want to have our students succeed in all of areas, whether that's in the classroom or outside of it. So yeah, I think working with the university would be great.
All right. Now, moving on. Would you reinstate Jill Massa, and do you believe her layoff was justified?
When it comes to decisions that are coming from the RSU, I think it's important that we keep in mind if it prioritizes students' needs, and I don't know if firing women on mat leave is a priority for students.
To clarify, she wasn't fired, she was laid off.
Okay, laid off, okay. So when it comes to decisions that the RSU make, whether it's a layoff, funding, or any decision making, it has to prioritize the voices and concerns and needs of students, and I just don't know if that's a priority for students. When it comes to the reaction that came out of that decision, unfortunately, a lot of student members, our other student unions, our community members were really disenchanted and frustrated with the decision, and that gave a really controversial reputation, as well as not the best kind of image for the RSU. And I think it's important that we maintain our principles of the RSU, which is one of inclusion, diversity, and equitable hiring practices. Once again, I'm going to just say that it's important that we are prioritizing students when it comes to any decision, and that we're transparent from the very beginning. Yeah.
All right.
So, with regards to reinstating jewelry, I think it's important to note that this wasn't about jewelry massa, and this is about the position of Executive Director of Communications and Outreach. This was not meant at an individual. There was 2 people who were affected by that. The other staff person was Dina Skursky. So it's important to know that this was about the position and not the individual. Also, that decision it's about 32,000 students and who we report to, and the organization that belongs to them. With regards to that, I think just in the future, it's looking at the past and why the decision was made, it's important to highlight the reasons of what happened. There was no HR structure, the position itself. When an external organization tells you that the position should be taken away for the betterness of the organization, when the staff salaries are increasing overall per year, and you have I believe the rate of increase of salaries over the past 5 years is 30%, and over the next few years it'll rise more compared to the amount of fees that we're going to get. So in the long run, the RSU would not have been able to be sustainable, and we would not even be able to meet staff salaries, yet alone put off student events, yet alone support the equity service centers. The decision was not an easy one. But going forward, we did our best to make sure that both parties were taken care of. We did our best to make sure the individuals were met, full severances were paid, recommendation letters were written, we reached out to even the university asking if they could accommodate for the individuals, because at the end of the day, there's someone who's done a lot of work for students, and working in a university maybe with students was a great opportunity, could have been an opportunity for them. But once again, I just want to highlight this was not about an individual, and it was about the position.
Are we allowed to rebuttal?
Yes, of course. You can have 1 minute for your rebuttal.
Yeah. Specifically when it comes to the EDCO position, to what my knowledge is that was a position to provide incoming elected student representatives with the institutional memory to do managing role. So when it comes to the introduction of or any decisions around new staffing or structuring, it's important that students are made very clear as to why the decisions are made. And I think that's when accountability comes into play, which is why we, as RU Connected, want to have accountability cafes. It's important that students are able to meet with their executives on an ongoing basis, not just the AGMs, which unfortunately are only held twice a year. And so I just think it's important that we're holding ourselves accountable as the RSU when it comes to decisions that we make.
Can I rebuttal that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So some clarification about your opinion. I just want to clarify some facts. The EDCO you said was doing management, but because the EDCO position was a unionized position, they were not allowed to do management, but they were supposed to advise the executive on how to do management, which is borderline illegal, and that was one of the factors of why the position had to be removed.
All right. Is everybody satisfied with this? Can we move on to the next question? All right. So let's talk about the general manager position. Do you think it should have been created? Why or why not?
Yes, the general manager position was something that was needed. A few years ago, I believe around 2005, somewhere onwards, there used to be a general manager position, and the general manager position was eradicated or was removed despite all the staff voting against it at the time. It could have been for political reasons, but over the past few years, there's been a lot of money that's been misused in the organization, or there's been a lot of money that we haven't been able to keep track of, a lot of overtime hours being approved with no records, poor management of HR, just because there was no general manager in place. And just echoing back what was previously mentioned by Awu, the fact that there needs to be some longevity in the organization. A unionized staff person cannot do that, and that's why you need someone who's non-unionized that can carry over and guide the executives in terms of that. Because usually you have a president. The president is supposed to take care of all staffing issues, and when the president is just a 21 or 20-year-old who doesn't have an HR background with a lack of experience, it can be very challenging to do so. So for the longevity of the organization, it is important to have a general manager.
Specifically when it comes to any research or data information, I think it's important that we're transparent to our membership, and any decisions that we're going to make that are going to ultimately be affecting our membership should be done in a more transparent way. maybe it would have meant holding a general meeting, letting folks know about this is the current situation. I'm currently unaware of any HR decisions that have been made, and I think that speaks to the previous RSU's lack of transparency, and that's something that we, as the RU Connected, really want to improve on.
All right. Is there anything you guys want to say about that? Can we move on? Sure. Cool. All right. So the Ontario government recently announced the groundbreaking plan to get free tuition for students in low-income families. I think a lot of the candidates sort of agreed that it's not, the end of the road by any means. So, going forward, how are you going to fight against the rising tuition fees?
Well, I think our first question kind of touched on that. So again, I can't reiterate this enough, but consult with the students first. Like, don't sit up in our offices and be like, students need this, or this is the one issue that affects all students more than any others. So consult first, and then create a very professional and well-researched proposal for the government to be involved in the 2017 tuition framework. Something that I would like to see shifted is how much we value the parents' income when making funding decisions or funding formulas. And that's an OSAP issue, but that's definitely something we should clear up. And then again, I'd like to have regular meetings with Minister Morty and his staff to ensure that they understand that students can't have any more rising tuition fees at this rate. And so yeah, I'd say that's how we'd continue.
All right, are you connected?
So, as was mentioned before, it starts with students, and it's absolutely essential to bring as many students in as possible into this process and to hear ideas that students have and to actually make students motivated to participate in a form of advocacy that they're comfortable with and that they support and that they want to get involved with. As I said before, I think it's important to do it in a professional and respectful way. For example, bringing research to the table. I think in previous years, student leaders did a little bit too much chanting and too little researching, but there was all kinds of very serious, well-researched policy papers about how education can be free and why it's actually good for it to be free. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, which is a very large and respected progressive economist group, they released a report talking about the actual benefits across society of free education. The CFS also released a report as a result of their lobbying efforts that talks about why it's a good thing. I think we need to bring these sorts of reports and this sort of serious economics to the government and make them understand that as students, it's in our interests, of course, to have education be free for as many students as possible, preferably all students, but it's also in their interest. And so rather than engaging in freeze the fees types of protests, which can be very limited and short term, we need to come to the table repeatedly, consistently, in collaboration with other student unions, which is key. And just a little bit about that point.
10 seconds.
Okay, maybe we can talk about that later. But yeah, we need to have as many meetings as possible with the administration, get them to support us in our efforts, and meet with the government as often as possible and make them understand that.
That's time.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, unpaid internships and pay-to-work studies are also sort of an issue that go hand-in-hand with tuition. Will your slate be advocating against these unpaid internships within Ryerson programs, and how will you go about doing that, if so?
I think the announcement last week about the grant from the government for low-income families when it comes to free tuition was a great step forward, and I think that just goes to show that our government is really wanting to have this conversation, is prioritizing post-secondary education because they understand that it's an investment for not only students but also our society on a whole. And I think given the work that's currently being done with students' unions, with universities, with our government, including internships and placements, to have them be paid is something that would be long-term, but that can be done. It's something that I, as myself, as well as our team at RU Connected, want to work to really tackle. It's also important to note that when we're talking about education, that it needs to be as accessible and affordable as possible, and that internships can be quite unaffordable when we're talking about the added costs when it comes to transportation, when it comes to working another job to compensate for the lost wages. And it's important that we're also talking about wages overall and that they're fair, that we are fighting for fair wages when it comes to paying our students.
So the question was unpaid internships, will we advocate for them,
Yeah.
and how will we do it? Okay. So absolutely, I've been very clear about how I'm against unpaid internships. And actually this year I got the opportunity to work directly with the Vice President of Education currently on the Stop Paying to Work campaign. And it was a very successful campaign. It resulted in a meeting with the government, and now we're the only student representative on the highly skilled workforce advisory group. This is a huge deal because this is an existing work group within the government, and now we're like literally in the belly of the beast where we have an opportunity to make change. So if I was elected, I'd just fill that role as Cormac has been now. And so it was a really big deal. And one of the pieces of advice they gave us when we met with them was that you need to find champions within the government, not just the current government, but also the NDP and the Conservatives, champions within the government that'll champion the cause, because they're the people who are standing up in Parliament. They're the people who are making the changes on paper. And I think it starts with a shift in the entire culture of how much we value entry-level workers. And as an FCAD student, I've done a ridiculous amount of unpaid work. I think most FCAD and community services especially have. And so I'd even be interested in seeing a program where the government helps fund, similar to the work-study program on campus, where they help give grants to small companies who hire entry-level workers rather than working on unpaid internships. Yeah, and I know there's a program similar to that, but I'd like to expand it.
Can I just make 2 quick points?
Yes.
Unpaid internships are obviously very unfair, and we need to work very hard to try to stop that practice. But I just want to put in a word on behalf of people who do placements through their program at Ryerson, which is not only unpaid, they actually have to pay tuition and yet go to work full time. It's, in a sense, even worse than an unpaid internship. You are paying to work. And I think that a lot of the faculty members who are involved in this sort of process understand that placements are also a big issue, and this affects a lot of students, particularly in the Faculty of Community Services. We definitely need to bridge to create a link between faculty members, students, and the administration, so that we can actually try to create a situation where students don't have to pay full tuition just to go to work full time. And also, I think something that RU Connected really feels strongly about is consistency. We saw last year that we had 1 meeting about unpaid internships, and then not too much work was done after that. We want to really emphasize the fact that we need to keep working on it. We need to have a sustained effort on this front, talking to as many stakeholders as possible.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can do minutes.
Okay.
So the Stop Paying to Work campaign that was run by Cormac actually presented 3 options or 3 ideas to the province. One of which was full stop stopping unpaid internships. One was providing a small stipend for travel costs and things like that at the end of the internship. And the other one was having a government kind of subsidize the cost of your tuition in that semester. So those were all ideas that were included in the current RSU's proposal as well. But I think either way, I'm sure both of us would continue that on very passionately.
All right. Moving on. So with more and more student societies and unions popping up on campus, a lot of people are looking to collaborate not only with their members but with other groups as well. How will your slate foster collaboration between these student societies, and how are you going to raise awareness among students who don't even know that these things exist?
So actually, I'm the Vice President of Corporate Relations on my student society right now. I think what we need to acknowledge right off the bat is that student unions and student societies have different mandates. And it's important to remember to work together when appropriate, but other times recognize that we have separate goals. And this is actually the first time ever that we've seen, RSU executives going to the student group leadership retreats, or having collaboration on the Ted Rogers Management Conference, or having collaboration on the conference, the FCAD conference. And in fact, Impact was actually the only slate to reach out to the student societies and to help for these elections. And we came back with endorsements from all major student societies. I'd say it's incredibly important, and how we work together is by a very much approach of what do you need and how can we support that, rather than pushing our services on them.
All right.
Yeah. We saw this year with the introduction of the non-voting membership, specifically that consisted of all the existing societies. That was a great step to get all the studies in actually one space. But what I was hearing from students was when it comes to getting involved in their program and in their faculty, it was really difficult to actually access them. Some of the events, such as conferences, networking events, which are so important to build both your professional and personal skills, were hard to find. They were either poorly marketed, and I think it's important that we support cross-collaboration events and conferences. And I know for me as a science student, my employee is not going to just specifically be asking me how I can use a Petri dish. They're going to be asking me about what I know about marketing, about design. And because Ryerson is known for having all these amazing programs, it's important that we have interactive cross-disciplinary conferences. And I think that's something that RU Connected wants to put on. Another point is our VP Student Life isn't here, but I know that she's really passionate. Rumana, what's up? She's really passionate about creating FOMO campaign, which is a fear of missing out. I know constantly I'm hearing about all these things that are happening, but I don't really know how to get into them or don't know who's involved. And so it's important that we create a calendar that would have all that information there, and you can have it be faculty specific as well as just general. So if I want to attend a conference or a mixer or a social event, that it's all there readily available for students, because unfortunately posters don't really work on this campus when an entire building is covered in posters from both inside and outside of Ryerson community members.
Can I just add on something?
Yeah, you have a minute.
Sure. So I just want to mention that at least Team Impact, while we were being formed, we're all a bunch of student leaders who have experience with course unions, student groups, and student societies, and we all have come together wanting to use our previous experience to benefit the entire Ryerson community. So I guess one of our main goals will just be to assist anyone, if that's a student in a faculty in a program, or if that's a student leader who's hosting an event or needs something, we're going to be there for them. And I think it's also just important to look back at the previous years, whether it was prior to our involvement with RSU, what we have done for different student groups and societies. I think the past year our relationship has been built. The student council, like U mentioned, the super council that was passed in one of the bylaw changes, that's a good next step to having a roundtable discussion with society presidents. But in general, I think our main focus is that we have a wide range of board members that have been involved all over campus.
Are we good to move on? Wonderful. All right. So, do you think the RSU is being transparent this year? Why not? And what are the best ways to ensure you're being as transparent as possible with your membership?
Do you want to take it?
I'll take it.
You want to
Rock, paper, scissors?
Go for it.
Okay. I think it's important that we improve on transparency. And I know it's been a really big buzzword this election season, but it really matters. I mean, students at the end of the day are paying fees and are members of the RSU, and it's important that they know what the RSU does, how it operates, what campaigns are happening, what events are happening, as well as the decisions that are being made on their behalf, right? Because it's by students for students. So it's important that not just, like I said before, not just during AGMs or, on our website, that could also be updated as well. That we're posting our board minutes, and that's something that our VP Operations wants to be doing. We want to be holding monthly budget discussions to let you know how the RSU is spending your money, basically. As well as myself, I want to be holding accountability cafes. I know for me, it's hard sometimes to keep up to date with what's happening at the RSU and what decisions are being made and how I can get involved and how I can share both my concerns and ideas. And it's important that students can have that engagement with our execs, with our elected representatives throughout the year on an ongoing basis, and one that is approachable and accessible, because sometimes folks can't come to AGM. And yeah.
Okay, so I think it's important to note the difference or the challenges sometimes that we face around transparency. There's a difference between being transparent, and then there's a difference between not being able to give certain information to the membership. The RSU is a non-for-profit organization, and we are legally bound to withhold some information to our membership That's just because of laws that have been passed by the government and how the RSU is. So, for example, staff issues or hiring issues, there's some things that cannot be told to the students because of confidentiality reasons. Even within the RSU, the only two roles that know everything is the VP Operations and the President. So that's just one important fact to point out there. In terms of just looking with regards to transparency, I think there's been a big growth this year. In previous years, reporters were not allowed in the office. The budget was nowhere to be found on the website. So just small stuff like that. I think there has been a sense of effort to move forward in regards to transparency and be as transparent as possible. But going forward, I think there will be more growth.
Okay.
So.
Just a quick point. I think part of the job of being an RSU executive is actually being visible and present on campus, making students feel like they actually know who's representing them and have, sort of a personal relationship with their student leaders and their representatives. And so we in RE Connected definitely want to be more involved on campus, just walking around, saying hi to students, just say what's up and ask them how their day's going and stuff, really be like an actual presence on campus. And as was said, transparency is kind of a buzzword, but we on RE Connected really want to make some very specific and concrete steps. Monthly budget discussions, as was mentioned, accountability cafes, as was mentioned. And yeah, our approach is to really be just as personable and as outgoing and as present on campus as possible. At our accountability cafes or monthly budget discussions, any student can tell us anything at all. Whether it's a criticism, whether it's positive, we really want to hear what students have to say, and we think that these sorts of spaces are a tremendous step forward that we really need here on campus.
Can I answer that?
Of course you can.
I think it's also important to note just that Impact also agrees with that we want to be more out there. The RSU executives and the board in general should be out there communicating with the students. I think the big part of our directors is to bridge that gap between the students and the executive, because the executive have a lot of roles to tend to in the office. So one thing that differentiates us between Are You Connected is that a lot of our directors are from different places within the faculties. They're involved with different course unions, with different student groups. They have good reputations amongst their students, and hopefully next year, if we're elected, we have good representation from the students on campus.
All right. Is everybody satisfied to move on? All right. Our final question we have here. There's been a lot of different opinions surrounding the CFS, especially in the last election. So what relationship do you feel the RSU should have with the CFS? And if elected, would you stay with them or consider defederation?
So overall, I think there's a lot of benefit to having a national or provincial organization to unite voices. I have taken a little bit of an issue with seeing how top down it can be sometimes, and there's actually a lot of research to show that has been how it operates sometimes. Sorry, could you repeat the question, the second part?
If elected, would you consider defederation? Would you stay with the CFS?
That would be a massive decision, one that would have to be very, very much directed by the students. Not to mention that, but it's kind of phrased as if like defederating is just something you select a box or don't select a box this year. It's a lot more of a complicated process than that. So there's also the question of legally, can we even do that if the students wanted it to? Overall, I think I have been frustrated just as a student seeing how top down the relationship has tended to be, because I think it shouldn't be. We shouldn't be getting told from a national organization what campaigns to run at a local level. I think we should be surveying our students and then telling them what issues on our campus we'd like their help fixing. But again, I do think that the CFS can be a very positive thing, and I look forward to having a positive relationship this year. If there's anything.
All right. Is it good? Are you connected?
I think it's important that students, Ryerson students, their voices are heard both at the provincial and national level. That just ensures that we can actually collaborate in getting things done that take longer term, like lobbying for more accessible education, like having a more comprehensive sexual assault policy, getting more funding from the government regarding to more space on campus, and that is something that can be done with collaborating with provincial and national organizing groups such as the CFS. I think the opinions around the CFS, it comes from whether or not Ryerson students our voices are prioritized, and I think it's important, and the Are You Connected is really sticking firm to ensuring that whether it's at the provincial or national level, that our voices are being heard and that we're not taking advisement from the national organizations like the CFS, but that we're taking it from the membership, and then any campaigns that we decide are going to be decided by the membership. Another point with regards to defederation, like Victoria said, it would have to be done from a membership, and it's not something that I personally would feel comfortable or that would be transparent if it came from the executive or board.
All right. Would you like to make one?
Yeah, I think I just also want to point out about Team Impact that our focus on the RSU election is about the RSU membership and not the CFS. So we're not running a campaign. We don't want to get elected because to fix our relationship with the CFS. To be frank, I don't care. If it's a mutually beneficial relationship, if we're accomplishing something for the students, I will work with anybody, whether that's the administration, whether that's the CFS, whether that's USA, CUSA, anybody. The intent is to focus on students, get what we need for our membership. And lastly, it also depends on them. Us defederating, refederating, not defederating, working with them. It also has they also have a big role to play in that. This year, I know it was an awkward start because there was a new team elected in, but despite one of the previous presidents being on the CFS Ontario, we've had some challenges working with the CFS. So, but hopefully next year, I think anyone who gets in,
You have 10 seconds.
we're looking forward to a better year.
All right. That's all the questions we have. We're going to move on to closing statements.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay. We can all clap at the end. We got it. Everybody's going to get 2 minutes to say their final piece, and then that's that.
So, once again, my name is Martin Fox. I'm very much hoping to be your next Vice President of Education. I've really enjoyed this debate. Could have been a little bit longer, but I thought it was good, nice and substantive. And basically, our team wants to do things a little bit differently this year. Every election we hear about accountability and transparency. These words get thrown around a lot. Impact, of course, is also talking about accountability and transparency, but we think it's about time we actually get specific and concrete about this. So as Awu mentioned earlier, we're gonna have a monthly space where students can come, meet face-to-face with their executives and tell us whatever it is that they feel they need to tell us, be that positive, negative, anything that students wanna tell us, we're gonna be there to listen to it. Monthly budget discussions, so students can actually have full access to the information about our finances, and they can actually give input directly to the VP operations, have a collaborative discussion about whether we're on track with finances and what to prioritize or deprioritize. And basically, I just want to make sure that the RSU is really present on campus. We have some really specific things like monthly skills development workshops, de-stress events throughout the year, more academic support services, a collaborative Cool. It's all right.
Hi, yeah, this debate was awesome, and I'm really happy to have participated with our team, Are You Connected? My name is Awu, and I'm running for president on the Are You Connected team in these RSU elections, and I hope that you vote March 7th, 8th, 9th on your myryerson.ca. We're so excited to really come and present an amazing platform and ideas that are really diverse in strategy and tactics, whether it's with mental health, having ongoing peer-to-peer support that wouldn't just be during exam times but throughout the year. And we understand with the counseling services having that wait time and the administration in the process, but it hasn't really happened yet. We really want to work with the university, work with our community members to actually support students throughout the year when it comes to mental health, and I hope that you vote. Thanks for listening.
All right. Let's hear from Impact.
Okay, well, thank you for having us for the debate. I've really enjoyed this. So these are a few of my ideas: lobbying to lower tuition, cleaning up OSAP, eliminating unpaid internships, innovative learning opportunities, and student-friendly academic policies. But above any one of those, I want to stress that I am taking a very consultative and collaborative approach to this. I want to take direction from the students in everything that I do. So as VP Education, I'll work to positively impact every student's educational career here. And March 7th to 9th, I hope you vote Impact. Thank you for having us.
So thank you to Eyeopener and for hosting this, and thank you for all the students of watching this. If you're definitely watching this debate, it means you're a student who's passionate about what's happening with the Ryerson, passionate about what's happening with the RSU, and you want to make an informed decision. I think this debate was a good platform to discuss what the two parties, where they differentiate and how the opinions differ. If you would like to know more about my platform points, about transit, mental health, access to education, and experiential learning, and just about the team in general, feel free to reach out to us on our social media, talk to us in person, and check us out. So thank you, best of luck, and let's all together make a better campus for the sake of us as students.
All right, thank you very much, candidates.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably like.
I'll shake hands. Do a little dance.